Welcome back! If you're one of my Patreon supporters, first of all, thanks a lot, I really appreciate it. Second, you're probably watching this video sooner because of the early access release. And this is what we'll be making today. We'll be making an FK rig for a Tentacle.
I want to start with FK because it's simpler and I don't have to worry about teaching all that stuff about legs and IK and reverse foot rigs. That will complicate things too early. Okay, let's start with an 8-sided cylinder. As usual, I'll delete half of it later to mirror. This time, let's add some polish with the Insert Edge Loop tool. So click twice here. I'll use multiple edge loops, set a number like 5. By clicking there, we're adding edge loops to an equal rate. That's a different way of adding more topology. With the Pen Polygon tool, I'll close up the top there, insert an edge loop and use the multi-cut tool to cut the quad into triangles. To get a nicer shape quicker, I'm going to use the Sculpt Geometry tool. For here, Mesh Tools, Sculpt Geometry tool. I'm going to pick Smooth and just fluid some smoothing in there. And more smooth. I'm going to do that in more vertices. It gives me already a smoother shape over there, so I can adjust. With the soft selection, I'm going to push one of the sides, so that side can be the front part of my tentacle. Right now I'm just shaping my tentacle around. It's a really simple model, so I'm just going to speed this part up. Okay, now for the UVs, I deleted half of it, and cylinder's not really working. I'm just gonna do a planar mapping and do the unfold 3D method to open it up. Then you can just cut some edges there and start aligning things. If you've watched the other videos in this series, you probably already know how to do that for your eyes closed, so I don't think there's much more I can explain about this. Okay, now that the UVs are done, let's mirror geometry. And we have our tentacle ready for texturing. So let's bring up Photoshop. Actually, let's snapshot this UV first. It's a tall UV. Since it's a tentacle, I think it's only fitting. It's 256 by 512. I only have to do half of it. The other half is going to be mirrored, so I'm going to do the, I don't know how to say this about the tentacle, the plug parts. And that plug part that's in half, the other half will be completed by the mirroring. Gonna add some green spots there. Probably gonna add those as overlay. Just so it's not like all clean and I'm actually only going to use the bottom part there. I'm gonna leave the top for the ground because I want to use the same texture as this for the ground. So I'm gonna adjust the UVs so they don't seem that stretched. Just select those and move them around until it looks right. Yep. That's better. Okay, just gonna do a little bit of a ground texture there, with lots of overlay little spheres copied around, just so it seems like some sort of dirt kind of thing. Now, as usual, with a low opacity brush, I'm gonna paint as multiply, shadows, and as overlay, highlights, make it pop out a little bit more. Yeah, just pick the colors from the painting itself. On the purple, a lighter purple, and on the beige, a darker beige. So that it looks better. Let's create a plane for the floor with around 4 subdivisions. You can use the sculpt geometry to smooth it a little bit, then just move the vertices where you want it. I'll delete half of it, just position my UV in the right place and then mirror it back. And this is my floor. Just pull this up here. Yep, that's a tentacle coming out of the floor. I've seen enough hentai to know where this is going. Okay, let's get this ready for rigging. First off, we should merge this, so let's mesh combine. Then we should get rid of all those inputs. Let's just go into edit, delete by type, history. And lastly, modify and freeze transformations to make sure we have 0 on the transformations. We can create a new layer by clicking there and ticking it into T, so the mesh is hidden but we can still see the wireframe. Then let's go into front view and let's create some joints. We're here in the animation tab. You can shift click to create a joint in the grid. I want to create one joint to each edge loop that's going to be deforming. Then I'll create a joint for the ground, one below everything that's going to be the main controller of the whole rig, and the others control each of the vertices over there on that plane. Well, not the edge ones, just the inner ones. I want the edge ones to be stationary. But yeah, I'll need 9 joints here. Just select the root one first, then you can create one that's already parented to that. We can mirror the joints, going to skeleton, mirror joint. We need to pick YZ, because that's the axis I'm working with. If you work with another axis, just take a look and try other thing. Okay, I'm just missing the joint in the middle, and I actually made a mistake here. The joints on the tentacle, they were supposed to be more towards the center of the mass. Right now we're kind of in the edge of the mass. This is how we're supposed to look like. We're supposed to be in the center of the mass, because that's where the mass is gonna pivot from. I'll fix that later. Actually, I didn't even fix that on this video. But yeah, that joint is in the middle of the ground. It's the last ground joint. Now let's name those things. With shift click you can open the whole hierarchy. You can double click to rename. Just gonna rename everything now. Naming is important because when you're painting weights, you want to be able to just look at the list and know what each thing is. So take your time and name things right. It will pay out in the end. You can middle click and drag to parent things in the outliner, put something inside another thing. And the ground root is the master joint, so he should be on top of everything. Okay, let's bind this to the skin. Select everything except the last one, because the last one's not gonna be in control of anything, so it's okay. Those are the settings I usually use. It's a skin, smooth bind. I like to do joint hierarchy and distance. Okay, now it's working. That's even better than I expected from a first bind. Now let's fix this. We're gonna paint those skin weights. You see, like, if I pull this up, the whole ground's coming with it, and that's not what I want. So, first things first, I like to select the whole thing. Like, I don't want the ground to be controlled by the joints in the tentacle. So I'm gonna select the whole thing, pick the replace option with value of 1. I'm gonna paint all that influence in the ground's root bone. Remember to normalize the weights as a post method, otherwise every time you fluid something, influence will come out of other thing. That's not what I want. Okay, so for every joint in the tentacle, I want to flood value of 0 on the ground, because I don't want the tentacle to control the ground at all. Now we'll do the same thing for the tentacle with the ground joints, just float 0 and go like pressing the down arrow key and making sure the others are not controlling it, and we lost some vertices there. You see the vertices went back to 0, it's because no joints controlling them. So let's select them and flood them into the tentacle root bone with value of 1. Now we're back into place. That happens, so if that happens, you know what the problem is. Okay, now those are not exactly how we want them, so we'll pick each edge loop and add value of 1 to the closest joint and value of 0 to the other joints near them. So this one, I'll take the value out. So each joint just controlling the part that we're supposed to control and nothing more. Just go up the joint doing that to each one. This method of painting weights, I find it's way better, at least for me, because it gives me more control. Some people like to paint weights actually painting them, like it's a brush in Photoshop or something, and that doesn't feel as precise to me. I don't like to do that. I like to pick my vertices and just fluid it. Okay, so this problem here, you probably know how to fix already. Just pick those edges, go back to the ground root, add 100% there, and add value of 0 to the other joints. So the joints will not be controlling those outer edges. Okay? Yep, that's more what I want. Okay. Uh-oh, this is not supposed to happen. Let's pick again our tentacle. I probably missed that joint. Okay, let's find which joint it is. Yeah, you see a little bit gray in there? It's painted and you don't want that. Now it's right. Yeah, that color is representing the influence on the joint. So the more white, the more influence it has. Okay, we need to paint that vertex to that joint. Let's pick it, find it, paint a value of 1. You see now it's white because it has the influence there. Okay, our character is rigged now. We could just animate it. But when we're animating, we want to make changes and be able to revert those changes by just zeroing out the transforms. And if we do that the way it is right now, to just collapse all back to 0. So we want controllers that will be easier to select and revert back to 0 as we want. So we can transform and then just revert it back. And I just realized that I messed it up, as I said earlier in the audio. As you can see, the joints are to the outer edge there, and it's not deforming well because it's supposed to be in the center of the mass. We can just hit smooth a little bit, select the joint and smooth it out, but it's not gonna be as good as if the joint had proper positioning. So when you're doing a tentacle, just remember, joints are supposed to be in the center of the mass. That's where they'll pivot. If you put them like I did there, that's what you'll get. They'll be pivoting from the outer part, and that's not cool. But oh well, it's working well enough for this tutorial. I'm not gonna re-record it just because of that, so close enough. Okay, so now it's time to make some controllers. I'm gonna make some Nurbs Curves. So going to create Nurbs primitives, circle, but first I turned off interactive creation because I just hate it. Okay, so now I have a circle here as my controller. Gonna want to zero out the transform, so let's put freeze transformations into our shelf with Ctrl-Shift-Click. You can just click it there easily every time I want to freeze transformations, and that's a lot of times when I'm rigging. Okay, so this is our main controller, control the ground root joint. So let's hit D and V and pivot snap there. And this one, I duplicated it with Ctrl D, and I want to make the control for the tentacle. I'm going to use the control vertex to change the shape around a little bit so I can more easily tell that it's a different controller. And always, when you position something, you got a controller done, remember to freeze transformations, that's important. I'll just duplicate it, snap to the next joint, scale it down. It's probably better to hide the mesh for this. But I'll just be snapping things and scale them down and positioning them. And after that, doing the freeze transformations. So I'm gonna speed things up here. You can see that's all I'm doing. Now I got all my controllers for the tentacle. I'm gonna do the hierarchy, just like the joints. So when I rotate one, the other one will rotate with it. You can do either middle mouse click and drag to the other one on the outliner, or select the child one, select the parent one, and do a P for parent. Those are two ways of doing it. You can choose either. Okay, that's exactly how I want it to work. When I rotate a parent one, I want the children to rotate with it. Now let's set up our constraints. We want an orient constraint to control the rotation of the joint with it. So select first the controller, then the joint. Going to constrain, orient constraint. And remember to click maintain offset. As you can see, the controller now will rotate the joint itself. You can use the G key once you have done it once, constrain, orient. You can use the G key to repeat the operation, so you just have to select the controller, select the joint and hit G. And do that for each of the joints now. For the main controller, we want to do things differently because we want for it to be controlling both the orientation and the translation. So we're gonna do also a constraint, point constraint, besides an orient constraint, also with maintain offset. And now when I move this, I'll be moving the whole tentacle. Whoop. Whoop, whoop. Roar! Yeah, I'm silly when I'm rigging and animating. You guys will have to get used to that. Okay, now let's make a new circle. I want to make some controllers for the ground. I'm gonna rotate them to look differently. Okay, that's easier to see. And I'm gonna just duplicate it and snap to each of the vertex. Well, each of the joints, I mean. And remember to freeze transformations afterwards. Yeah, that's the middle one. They should all be children of main controller, because we'll be moving with it. Okay, now the same thing, we're going to want to do a point constraint in this case, because we'll be moving the ground around instead of rotating it. So select the controller, select the joints, constrain, point constraint, maintaining offset. Okay, I'm gonna select all of them and hit freeze transformations. And I'm also gonna hide some of the channels because I only want to move the translation on those, so I can hide everything else. And I just made a mistake and I hid everything else but rotation, but I want to actually be able to translate them, not rotate them, so I'm gonna fix that later. Right now I'm gonna do the right thing here and hide everything but rotation for the tentacle, because for the tentacle I'm just gonna rotate, except the root. The root's gonna have both of them. So to do that, we just select the channels, right click, and lock and hide selected. If you do the same mistake I did, you can go into, just a moment. Okay, you can go into Edit, Channel Control. You find what you don't want, you move it to the non-keyable hidden. You found what you put there as a mistake and move it back. You can also go into the locked and unlock it by selecting those there and moving it back. And now we got it right. We can only translate those. Boink, boink. So yeah, the controllers now work. Our rig is done, so I'm gonna do some quick animation here. Don't judge me because I did this really quick. First off, playback speed should be real time. So you should go into the timeline, right click it and choose real time. Otherwise, things will play really fast. You also want to click on that key there with the red background, so it will auto key. Let's select all the controllers on the first frame and hit S for keying. I want to start my animation on the ground, so I'm gonna pull that down and I'm gonna make a ground. Okay. So now I'm going to frame 9, I'm going to put him above the ground, so he'll be kind of getting out of the ground like that. And about frame 34, I want him to start getting back into the ground, and frame 41 he's going to be back in the ground. So a cool trick for that is you pick all the controllers on one frame, you middle mouse click another frame and hit S, and it will save the position of that frame, those controllers on that frame, on the other frame. I'll do that to copy over the position of being above the ground from frame 9 to frame 44, and from frame 1 I'll copy the underground position frame 41. In between the frames I'm gonna start doing some modifications to the positions so it will look more natural as it comes out of the ground. You see, like, okay, now I have problem on frame 2, so on frame 2 I correct it. Now on frame 8 I want it to be more to the back. You see what's happening there? And I want to do a whip in frame 14. What I'm trying to do here is that I'm pulling the weight from the base of the tentacle, and the top part is just following the weight. So if I pull this way, it should be lagging behind. Then when I pull it back, it should change direction and lag behind. The top part doesn't know that the bottom part has changed yet, so it's still being pulled. So every time I'm gonna be pulling it one way, I want to lag the controllers the other way around, where it came from. When I change, I want to rotate it back. Okay, now for the ground, we want to select all the controls, save a key in the first frame, then go into frame 4 and just pick some random positions up and down for each of the ground keys, power controllers. Then I'll go into the 8th frame and I'm gonna put those into the reverse position. So if it was up, I'm gonna put them down. If it was down, I'm gonna put them up. And I'm gonna use that trick, middle mouse on number 1 and save it there. So now I have a little loop animation that will just be going randomly up and down. I want to open the graph editor window, animation graph editor, select all the keys, go into curves and post infinity cycle. Now we got a cycle. It just goes on infinitely repeating that loop. And it's almost perfectly, just one control there, that's way too much down. So I'm just gonna change the keys. On 1 it's gonna be more up, on 8 it's gonna be the same as 1, and on 4 it's gonna be there. Okay, now it works, the ground is moving, the tentacle is moving, and we have an animation. and we can wrap the tutorial now. This is how you do an FK rig with animation. That's it, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial today, and if you haven't yet, please check out my Patreon. And if you have and you're one of my patrons, thanks a lot, I really appreciate the help. I'm gonna be posting lots of cool content there. I already posted my procedural level generator. I've posted a PDF guide for the past tutorial, I'm gonna post this one too. And if you're a patron, you're probably watching this earlier because of early access. Alright, next tutorial is gonna be about a leg rig. So I'm gonna make a character with 2 legs and just like a little ball for body, so it will keep things simple. And after that, I'm finally gonna tackle the character rig with the knowledge you guys learned from this tutorial and the legs one. So that's it, I'll see you guys. I'm not sure if it's gonna be Tuesday because I might want to release a bonus tutorial this week. So yeah, if I don't release the bonus tutorial, it's gonna be Tuesday. See ya!